Welcome back, everybody, to Aces53 with Ed Parcaut and myself. And yes, today is a Thursday, which normally means we have a joker. However, we don't have one this week. So it'll just be Ed and I once again. Unfortunately, the guest we're going to have on wasn't able to make it. So you get to deal with us twice
What's
a
the
week.
deal with people who just can't make it all of a sudden?
And life gets busy.
What happened to the people that, I commit to something and I follow through at all costs?
True. I think just people have a lot going on. Holidays, trying to wrap stuff up before the end of the year. You know how it goes.
Whatever. Don't say you're going to do it.
I've had to miss stuff.
That's
Although this year I had to. I did not realize I double booked one when I was out of state, and so I was on one podcast and I walked out and I turned my phone off, do not disturb, which I need to do now. Speaking of which, and what happened is the other person like, hey, they tried calling 3 times, like, where are you at? And I'm like, oh my god, I'd never done that before.
I've done that once. Not double booking, but forgetting I was supposed to be on a podcast because work got in the way.
Yeah.
But and Marshall's like, I can't believe. I go, he goes, don't you bitch anymore.
Exactly.
But one time does not make it. I mean,
there's exceptions.
Yeah, I was talking to you before we went live, and I was interviewing a guy, and he was talking about how, and so I interviewed a guy that runs a pickleball company, where they make paddles and everything else. And he's like, yeah, I've been doing about 12 of these in the last 2 months. And I'm like going, dude, I do 12 of these plus a radio show a week.
Well, not everybody's as cool as you, Ed.
No, but I'm just saying it's just scheduling, but don't get me wrong. I'm getting to a point where it's a lot of overload for all the other stuff I'm doing. Again, you have to do what you do best and farm out everything else. And start, even if you don't have the money, start farming out a little bit to somebody or something.
It's funny you say that. I wasn't ready to listen to the book at the time, but God, I just forgot the name of it. It's Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. Everybody recommended that book. I'm like, no, I can do my stuff. I can do my own video and everything. But you're right. There comes to be a point of you're holding yourself back by holding on to everything. And so what are the things you can do? And it's funny because in other areas of life, no problem. Hey, you have a person do your taxes. Yes, you can do your taxes, but it's probably going to be better for you if you pay someone because they're going to figure out how to get you more money back. But it's very difficult to let go of things because we hear the horror stories. I was at a podcast event in the audience earlier this week, and one of the guests that was there was talking about how a PR person took their money and ran. And then another person that was a couple out of Indiana, and they hired somebody to do all their marketing for them. And that person said they were putting all this in marketing place and introducing manufacturers and everything, and blew through an obscene amount of money and didn't do a single thing. And so I think that goes back to what you and I talked about before, which is get in and get dirty enough that you can tell if you're being swindled or not.
Know what you need to do.
Right.
Know what's supposed to have been done, how long it should potentially take, and then you can keep track of it. But okay, just because you use freelancers or assistants, I talked about this on I'm going to say it again, a podcast this week. Right. And it's basically the guy I was talking to. He was saying how when they first started, they were taken advantage of because they were like running it, not like an owner of a company. You still, just because they're not employees, you still have to manage your expectations with them and say and set up points to be checked in, and not like when they get back to us. No, when am I going to get this? So I started working with a company to do some media stuff for me and stuff, and it's like, okay, 48 hours on the first thing, and then after that, anything is every 24 hours.
Right.
And then their 24 hours is because they're in UK time, so it's really not 24 hours. It's like 8 for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Because I'm sleeping most of it.
And that's what we talked about in a previous episode, is there are advantages to having overseas VAs or companies that you work with. Is there's nothing wrong with American made. It's great that we want to hire people that are local to do other things, but sometimes it's more advantageous to have someone who's on a different time schedule because they can work while you sleep and vice versa. And if most of us have a busy 8 to 5, and that's either you're at a corporate job, you're running a company, you're doing whatever. But if work can get done while you sleep, so the first thing you can hit it in the morning and say, no, I need this, this, and this. And then the next day when you wake up, it's there, versus trying to live your life, get through your day, and also communicate with a third party. It can be tough.
Yeah. Well, you just have to, again, set certain expectations, set your plan, everything in place, and just do a little bit out. Don't do it
Right.
all. Don't give them access to a bunch of money.
Right.
Just, you should not let anybody have access to your money.
Oh, I forgot to hit go live on Instagram. Go live.
Oh, I should have told you because I'm already there.
Yeah.
Anyway, back. So that's just what that's been helping me. And then I was telling somebody else the other day, because I've been putting out there and everything, my 3 niches that I work with: veterans, business owners, and reverse mortgages.
Yeah.
Well, everything I have right now that I'm working on is all of those 3 except for one outlier.
And what's the outlier?
Just a regular cash out refinance for somebody.
Yeah.
But that's what I explained when we just said, even though those are your niches and you're talking to them, it doesn't mean you can't do something else also.
Right.
But it's just, and changing, which I was afraid to for so long, even though I give this advice, but even the person giving the advice sometimes have an issue with doing exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
What does that thing? Do as I say, not as I do.
Yes.
Hypocrite kind of stuff. Yeah. But no, it's just, so I did, and I changed my approach page is getting changed to just doing how I do it. The 3 things I do. Now my question is, do I want to move that to my front page instead of the front page I have now? Which my front page is, says everything of, financial freedom, building first of all through home ownership, and then just has all my podcasts and everything else. And then the approach tab. Well, shouldn't it be the first page and the other stuff on the other page?
It definitely should. Yes.
Yeah, I think so too.
What do you want people to see first? Well, and that's always a challenge.
My good face, my beautiful face.
Yes. That is always a challenge point, is where do you want people to land? And that's why one of the things that people do is have different QR codes, different funnels that lead to different landing sites, you name it, because the audience sometimes determines where you want to end up. So if I'm at a speaking event, obviously
that's a landing. Yeah, but that's a landing page difference.
Right.
There's websites and landing pages. Websites are 4 pages or more, and a landing page is 1.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is I put up a different QR code depending on what of my web pages do I want them to land on. And so don't have to have just one QR code. You can have multiple different QR codes, things of that nature, or funnel that, yes, they go through and they put in information, but then where they land after that is on different pages on your website. But it used to be you had to have a website. And now they're talking about, website is just a necessary evil, but it's not a focal point anymore. Funnels are more where people are going, social media, advertising, you name it. It's important to have a website, but it's not the same pull that it used to have.
Well, because it was the only place people went to. Then they realized how to do landing pages and all these funnels to put you through and everything else. But when you're on a stage for sales, right, you should have them going to your sales funnel about all the stuff you have that helps them do better in sales.
Right.
Now, if you're working with a company, you're on a stage, a company who does HR, you should then have all your stuff on HR. If you go to a podcasting place and you're talking about podcasting and how to connect with people through the screen right now, like you could totally mess with me and get me to, knowing how to talk to me through the screen from what you know. Well, if you're at a podcast, then you would take them through your podcast area.
Exactly. And that's right. And that's what we're saying. That's a good reason to outsource things, is now you need multiple different veins of ways to get people things, or a common term is, different pillars of what products do you have. And that wasn't the way it was that long ago. It used to be, I have a product or I am the product. But now it's no, you can have a niche or you can have multiples like you do, which is you have a main one, but you have multiple ones that can run concurrently instead of just one at a time.
Well, I think I saw 5 streams of income, right? You have your normal income, which you do. That would be my mortgage stuff.
Right.
And then I have my books, my courses, then you want to have some type of mastermind group. You can have some type of just group itself. You want to have 5 streams of income is what I'm seeing.
Yes.
And those other streams just help support with what you do. And I think a good example of that is like Steve Sims. He has who Steve Sims is, and he talks on as a speaker. And that's another one of yours that you could have as speaking on stage, which is separate then for everything else.
Correct.
Because you don't want one job that's where you make all your money from, because then what if speaking slows down?
Well, look at the pandemic. That's what took out a lot of businesses, was only having one source of income. And with so now you have to think more than one. And look, for people who are listening, you're like, well, I'm an employee, I don't need to think about that. Yeah, you
You
do,
do.
because any job can be replaced anytime at any age, and it doesn't matter if you've been there for 1 year, you've been there for 20 years. There's no longer a sense of loyalty unless you work for a very, very small company, or you have, you're invested in the company, you've got stock options, things of that nature. The amount of people I know who have been laid off in the last 2 years, it is all levels. Talking from executive vice presidents down to help desk. And it's all people that were either there for 1 year or 20 years. I'm a case and study, 21 and a half years, gone, no severance package, nothing. And, I have unique circumstances, but the amount of people I know who were let go this last year is insane. And it's only getting worse. Go and research people trying to get jobs who don't have experience out of school. And it's really hard for them, especially with AI coming in and being able to replace so many different jobs.
Right. And I was talking again, another interview I was doing, the guy's older, probably I'd have to say in the 80s. And he like, dude, I feel so sorry for the people this generation, that's out here right now, is because over your career, you're going to have to pivot so many times to stay ahead of the curve versus because I was talking to him, I go, during the 50s, 60s, 70s, I mean, nothing really changed that fast compared to where he's like, no, not at all. And compared to how it is now. And it used to be like every 5 years, you'd have to reinvent yourself. It's going to be freaking constantly changing going forward. I feel sorry for people going forward.
There was a guy who wrote a book early 2000s. It was called Key Person of Influence. And it's Daniel, I'll think of his name here in a minute. Oh, Daniel Priestley. And that's what the book was about. He predicted back then what people will be is not employees for large corporations, but contractors who come together to perform a task and then move on to their next project. That we would go to a project-based society versus an employment-based. And you and I have been in the rooms with Manoj, where he's talking about where he sees the utopian version of AI is AI and automation does so many jobs that people will receive a stipend to stay at home. I don't see it necessarily going that way. That's his utopian vision.
It's not Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, and no,
I'm just saying, because Star Trek didn't have money,
right?
That because everybody worked for, and you just what you did. You don't make any money, but everybody's the same.
Exactly, which is fine if you have communist type buildings where everything is exactly the same. But you have people with a 1-bedroom apartment all the way to 52 square foot mansion. And that's the challenge with everything is you can't have where everybody gets the same when there's such a deviation in what people can afford or not afford.
Well, the problem is what people understand is in the communist society, there's people who have all the money and they're the higher ups and they're the ones in government. They have the money. Yeah. And so, but let's not get into much more politics. I've been kind of nice lately not having to talk about it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
back to what we're talking about. You have to have all these different skills, different pillars of income, different ways to make money. You talked about earlier, just even the changes in the last year or two. You hear coaching now, and people aren't on coaching, but people want to be part of masterminds,
right?
So it's just
see something important there. You have to contact.
No, my screen it looked like it wasn't playing right, so I was looking back to make sure it was still on screen.
Yeah, we're good. I can see over on Instagram.
Okay.
My camera keeps flickering, but I know it's my monitor.
I noticed that. I thought it was just me moving my mouse over it.
So mine is flickering?
It looked like it was for a minute.
Is it right now?
Now it looks good.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's just my makeup.
Yeah. So back with what we're talking about, you have to think more than just one source of anything. And so if you're an employee, have a passion project on the side, have another way that you could make income. Because for anybody who's not been on unemployment, I did not know until it happened to me. Unemployment's in Texas is $500 a week. I thought it was based on your salary, and I used to make a hefty salary. And I came down, I'm like, whoa. You hear all these stories about people being on unemployment for all this period of time. And I'm like, well, how the hell did they pay bills? Because
they didn't make much money to begin with.
What's that?
They didn't make much money to begin with.
True. But I didn't know until I was there. I was very ignorant to the process. It was just one of those that once I found out, it's $500 a week, and I'm divorced, so I had child support. So then they took half of it for child support, even though I was already paying child support because they didn't have a way to verify. So for me, it would have been $250 a week. And I'm like, I can make more money doing anything other than that. And I'm already paying child support directly out of my bank account. So it wasn't their fault. They didn't know I was paying it. But it's one of those things that had I known unemployment's only $500 a week, I definitely would have planned differently in case anything ever happened.
Right. Well, I mean, also being a business owner, there is no unemployment. Self-employed people don't have, except during the pandemic, you can get unemployment.
Oh,
It's like, well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I didn't think about that part of how much were people getting when the,
I don't know. A lot.
Yeah, I think it was 2 or 3,000 a month.
They're getting extra from the Fed and extra from the federal side.
Yeah.
But who cares? That's over. Let's move on.
Yeah. Right.
So
Anyway.
basically what you're saying is have multiple streams of income. Even if you're working for a company, you need to protect yourself. And that's all I'm saying is you need to protect yourself, period, in general.
Absolutely.
And start thinking, because most people want to start their own thing anyway, their own business. Most people are. I'm dealing with so many people. My Helping the Brave podcast kind of went into now business owners, just because of the people coming to me through Podmatch. They're business owners. And it's amazing how many veterans are business owners. I interviewed a guy yesterday on my Inner Edison podcast. Didn't even know. And he was a veteran.
Yeah.
He went to ROTC and all the different things he went through, but it's nowhere on his Podmatch stuff. I'm like, dude, you need to put that on your Podmatch that you're a veteran, because you'd be getting picked up by many other podcasts.
Right. Well, there's a brotherhood with that. I didn't serve, but my dad and my brother did. And it's one of the things, there's a camaraderie. And yes, you guys like to give each other crap for which branch, right?
Well, that's
but there's
only
still
we can. Nobody else can.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying there. But even though they harass each other, there's still that bond of pulling together for it. And it's a kind of like, my grandfather was in World War II. And when he moved to Texas from New York, the first place he went was the VFW, because he knew he would find like-minded people, that level of respect, and people he could share stories with, that most people wouldn't understand. And there's definitely something about that for anybody who's been in the military, is what people have seen and gone through. You can't understand unless you've been there.
Right. And you just have a connection that you just don't get anywhere else. I mean, I could talk to a vet in 2 seconds and there's the connection forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but
anyway,
back to what we're talking. Well, and
I keep saying anyway, I'm picking up your so's. I'm adding anyway.
Exactly. Well, that's a good point. I know a lot of people who are law enforcement, first responders. Like, since firefighters have 48 on, 24 off, they have side jobs on those 24. Oh, yeah. So that's the reason we keep kind of like beating this to death, is really, truly, to get ahead in anything anymore, you have to think more than just one source of anything. Except for wives or husbands. I would stick to just one at a time.
Well, it just depends on if you're in Utah or not.
That's right. But it's true. One of the things we just talked about in Steve's mastermind is only a lot of people only had the one thing, only have speaking, only have one product. And it's, do you have a book? Do you have a course? Do you have all these different things? And to your point, it is masterminds. People want to be around other people. Live events are making a comeback. Just talked to somebody yesterday who, just since the election is over, not who won one way or the other, but now that the elections are over, they're seeing tickets sell more again, because people always hold off because they're unsure. And it doesn't matter which side of the fence they're on. People hold on until they think they know what's coming. And then all of a sudden events are starting to sell out again next year, versus
people are more, they think everything's going to be better now.
Yes.
And most of the people who go to the events that you're talking about we're on the other side of that fence.
Agreed.
And so they're like, okay, everything's going to be better. I'm a capitalist.
Right.
Okay, period. Capitalist. If you're a capitalist, everything's going to be better. If you're not a capitalist, then you don't think it's going to be better.
Exactly. And that's where people vote with their wallet for a lot of things. And
my grandfather told me that to do my whole life. He said, vote your pocketbook and you'll never go wrong.
Yeah. Sorry, my chair's acting up today. But that's why a lot of people now are thankful that they pushed off their events to next year. But they also didn't know what would happen one way or the other. Should they do an event? Should they not? But people are starting to feel, now that the election's over and it's not driving us against each other on everything, that they can invest in themselves again. Right. And for anybody who's not, look, I love TV just as much as anybody else. But if you're not using your spare time to look for ways to improve, and like we talked about, have separate sources of income. I'm not saying you have to go drive Uber, but be thinking about what else you can be doing, because the economy is so constantly changing. Jobs are changing, like you and I talked about. We're using AI to cut out what used to be things we'd have to hire people for. Well, guess what? You're going to be the recipient of that same thing at some point.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Michelle. They're on Instagram.
Gotcha.
And they're so prime example, right? When
Yeah.
what happened to our industry, the question really is this: what I saw with Steve is, did this happen to us or did this happen for us?
Right.
And for me, I was able to, I got 2 more books getting ready to be brought out because of the extra time I've had, and the courses I have for podcasting and for my lending side is, I couldn't have done that if or I should have said I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And and because of the time factor, and you need to do that.
Yes. And again,
And then one more thing, I'm sorry, the
Yeah.
GPTs I've come up with to make our life easier in our industry, huge difference, so that you don't have to think about stuff.
That's Manoj was talking at one of the last events of, he created a Chat GPT mastermind. So if anybody's read Think and Grow Rich, where Napoleon Hill talks about you need to have a mastermind even in your head. So he would imagine himself talking to like Abraham Lincoln or whatever. Well, now with Chat GPT, you can actually ask Chat to go do that for you, and say like, if I were to ask so and so a question, what would their response be based on the historical knowledge of them? It's very, very interesting times. Now that for those who don't play around, there's a Chat GPT search now. And I know people know that, but let's talk about the evolution since you and I have been using Chat GPT.
Well, I mean, if you have the new iPhone or the new software 18, you push the button and ask you, do you want to Google or do you want to use Chat GPT to search for your stuff?
So it used to be that it was just a kind of a somewhat of a research. And, when we first started playing with it 2 years ago, all you could do was 2021 and historic.
Back. Yeah.
Yes. Then they released to modern day where you can scour current websites. And now
can I add to that?
Yeah.
What other people added things so that it could go and search.
Yeah.
And then they incorporated that eventually into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was,
And so now the fact of I double get or second guess everything I used to do. So I used to be on one browser, DuckDuckGo, on another browser, I was Google. And now I'm thinking, why not just go Chat GPT? I think I mentioned it last week or when I was talking to somebody else. I can now, I tried Googling what are some TEDx speaking spots are still open. It gave me all the different TEDx websites to go check out. Went to Chat GPT and said, go and research who has an open call for speakers for a TEDx talk in the next 6 months. And it gave me all the open ones with the links to go in directly and apply.
Yeah.
So,
well, you can actually ask it, like if you wanted to do something at a certain software, you can ask it, give me the steps to be able to do this, 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 and this, and don't leave anything out.
Right.
Because the old books that were something for dummies, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would tell you the stuff that you thought that other people thought you would know already.
Yeah.
They told you that kind of stuff. Well, that's the same thing, Chat GPT, because I needed to upload something to high level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked it to just tell me the step by step. So I didn't have to go research it and read. It just told me that.
I have not. I'm still guilty of going to YouTube first, which is owned by Google. I still go to YouTube because there was something the other day I was setting up in high level First Direct 360, and I was having a problem with it. And I ended up going to YouTube and saying, how do I do this one thing? I was changing the banner on top or the header, and I couldn't do it in the normal WordPress page. So I went to YouTube first. But you're right. I need to start looking in Chat GPT.
Well, not just ask it to tell you how to do certain things.
Right.
Like the other day when I have a veteran who is buying a second home as a VA, and I needed to figure out what is max VA he could buy on his next one.
Yeah.
There's a formula that I had to, you have to go research. You don't use it all the time. So you're like, oh, I can't remember. Well, I created a GPT that first I did it in there, and then I created a GPT. Now you just drop the certificate eligibility and it pops up and tells you what those numbers are. And you don't have to think about it. It's about speed. And then the one I created I was telling you about the other day, where all the underwriters come and go, we need the letters of explanation for this. You just take what they want, drop it in there. If you know the answer, just drop the answer and hit go. It writes that letter for you in 2 seconds, and you just copy paste over and send it out to be signed. Where instead of in the past, you'd be going, okay, you're trying to write it, and now you don't. So the Chat GPT that you can create the GPTs, is amazing because I did a couple
Exactly.
more on how to make a course, how to write a
Mhm.
book, how to do certain things. You guys, all these people out there trying to sell you these courses on AI and how to do stuff, they're only one step ahead of you because they went to Chat GPT and said, "Hey, help me create a prompt
Right.
for this." And then how do I now take that and put it into a GPT as a prompt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like everybody was an NFT, expert. Everybody was a crypto expert, which now that crypto's back up again, people are, I guarantee you that's going to be the next ads that we see since Bitcoin crossed 100,000 a coin
Yeah.
2 days ago. That will be the next one again is I'm a crypto expert. They were awfully quiet when it was down at 30,000 a year ago. you know,
Yeah.
So God, I said so again. The point that
Hey,
Ed was making with everything is you can use Chat GPT for every business. The important part is trust but verify. What it creates for you, you need to double check.
because a question, if you're just doing standard stuff, it's
Yeah,
okay. But if you're going to ask it to write you a legal argument, you might want to double check that.
exactly. Well, for you, you do documents with like with formulas and math and, laws and things that are in there. Same thing. You can
Yeah, but
trust it to a degree.
it puts it on it put it on the screen how it
Right.
did it.
Hmm.
Where what you can do is go in there and put just a claim in there to where nobody can get the information that's inside your Chat GPT that you
Right.
created, the GPT. You put
Hmm.
this little claim in there. I didn't do that on this because I did it for me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see. So it tells you how it does the math, and it was correct. So
What did I
and it
see?
actually went and got the information to do the math.
There was an article, I can't remember where I saw it the other day, that an AI went out, registered its own company, and did something else, like created its own LLC and did all these rogue things. It's a little scary at times too, to think if it can do all these things, what should we be worried about it doing? And I'm sure
Well, the
there's a lot.
question is, didn't you say, weren't you the one that said the other day that it's going to start lying to us?
Mm-mm, wasn't me.
Someone said it's going to get so smart that it's going to start lying to us.
I can see that. Can absolutely see that taking place.
Yeah. I could see. I mean, that's the thing about you got to be careful. I mean, again, a lot of the stuff is just to help you do better at
Right.
work and other things, and that's how you should be utilizing it and doing your job faster, so you
Yes.
have more free time. We all the AIs we use for cutting up video and different things for creating the descriptions and other, and the other thing I did the other day was I think I already told you was one for agents where they just drop in the address, and when it has changed on the property, it creates a description for their listings and all the
No.
YouTube, and then all the posts for all the different social medias,
Mhm.
their door hangers, their you name it, it was on there. A PR announcement, you name it, everything you possibly could ever want. If you're doing a video of your
Mhm.
property, the voiceover for that video.
Yep. Well, for people who I imagine most people who are watching us are already familiar with it to a degree. But if you're not, if you've ever gone and typed something into Google, you can do the exact same thing. You just get smarter the more questions you ask. Because when I Google something, then I type in a new thing, it's a completely new search. With ChatGPT, you start with a search and then you can expand it. So you can say, go and research my top 10 clients based on I sell this product. Here's my website. Here's my prices. And then when it gives you the response, you can say, great, now drill down. And that's the big difference. So for anybody who's timid to jumping into it, it's Google Plus, meaning you type in Google what you're looking for, it shows up, but then you can drill down more and more and more, and it saves your searches to the side so you
If
can
you
remember
stay
what
in
that.
that same one,
Right,
but you can create a GPT from your searches that you can just go back to each time,
right,
and you
and
don't have, and then it doesn't keep adding down here. And
right.
where's that one that was 10 back or 20 back?
And for people who don't know, when you say create your own GPT, it's like creating a Word document for that search that you can go back to and reference that then comes
That would
in,
be
picks up
more
where it
of a
left off.
macro. I would say more like a macro inside of like Excel, or the macros, and when
I
you have
know, but I'm trying to make it easy for people.
I'm just saying, but it's when database first came out, and we used to code in debate, to make certain database stuff. It's
Yeah,
just all it is you're giving it commands to do so
right.
that you don't have to do it every time.
Yes,
That's what it is. It's a command structure set up to where what you want, and
yes.
you can have it write these for you,
Hmm.
which is people don't understand.
Because people are afraid of it. They think, oh, I have to be a programmer, and it's the furthest thing from it. It's actually putting programmers out of work because it's doing the complex stuff based on simple requests.
And it's getting better and better.
Mhm.
I mean, now it can do graphics, logos, everything you potentially needed. It can do now for you.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah, I can tell when you're looking away at something. You're
Well,
like,
no, I'm on the same screen. It flickered for me. I'm like, did I lock up? Did I not?
oh well.
Yeah. But
Anyway, well, we've been here for 30 minutes.
all right. Well, we'll be back again next week. I was going to ask you what we're going to start off today before we went off in different ways. What are you working on to end off the year?
Finishing my 2 books and the courses, and I'm starting the courses next week for podcasting. I have like 5 people who want to go through the first one with me.
Mhm.
And then from there, I'm going to edit it and make it even better than what I have already. So if you want to be part of that, just reach out, direct message me. Do not do it down below. Direct message me. That's the first step. If you don't do it right, you don't get in.
Right.
Yeah. I said that the other day, and somebody like right afterwards. It's like, yes, you're in.
I'm working
on
the book. The book is done. I was reading through the comments on Instagram, making sure I was answering people too. Book almost done, going through rewrites with it. Going to work on that. I launched the collective the other day, which is the mastermind. People come in, do the group training versus originally I was setting up for one-on-one, and I'll still offer it, but there's more value in learning from each other. I was on a mastermind last night with one of the guys that taught me one of the skills, and getting to see how other people understand it and say it helps it as a student of that particular skill, helps me ingrain it more. And that's one of the things is I'm actually writing about this in the book is don't trust a book. Picking up a book is the first step. Then take that next step, get into group coaching, you surround yourselves with peers, people you can learn from. Because the problem with reading a book is what you interpret from a book is your understanding, which may be incorrect. And that's why you need to get around other people who are practicing it or whoever wrote the book, get into coaching, get into masterminds, because the way you read it may not be the way it was wrote. People can't read your book and then just go buy a house, but they can start working with you to then get a house.
Well, they can read my book and go buy a house, just not with me.
Right. So,
I mean, it just makes it easier. And that's why I'm writing the one for veterans. And the one for veterans has to do with benefits also. It's a separate, because I've talked to these people are helping me redo my benefits for the VA, and I've sent them 6 people just in the last 3 days.
Yeah.
Because everybody I talk to, do you have your disability? 10%, 20%. Oh, dude, we got to get you to these guys so they can get that up for you. And you tell them what the cost is, unlike the one that we know through the place down in San Diego that I went a couple times, the one that's on stage with that book, and he says how much money he's making from the vets.
Yeah.
They don't charge that arm and leg bullshit.
Oh, didn't know that. Good to know.
So there's different companies doing it differently. Some are charging a percentage, a huge percentage, and other ones are charging like a flat fee of like $5,000.
And that's like anything that's out there, right? I mean, you talk about there's social media marketing companies. If you don't want to do your own social media, some people will charge you a monthly stipend. Some people will charge you, a percentage of what they help you sell. There's all kinds of businesses to work with no matter what you're looking for in the world. So do your research. And I'm a big fan of finding out someone who's used that before, because a lot of people are just really good marketers. We were at an event Monday, that podcast, and we're talking about there are people out there saying that they can offer to, $1 million, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't insert the name, $1 million speaker course, $1 million real estate course. Those people are just good marketers. They've never made $1 million. That's where you have to dig in and figure out what's shiny, but doesn't work versus what has worked and has successful results. That's what people need to dig into.
Correct. All right. Thanks for being here today. We'll be back here next week, our normal times, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we appreciate you. We appreciate you and commenting on our stuff, making sure and if there's, I can't even talk today.
You want me to take us out?
I'm good. I can finish it up. I'm tired today. Rotary early. I actually moved my alarm this morning, which I never use an alarm.
Yeah.
I put it there just so I don't sleep through it. And so I'm tired. I want to go back to bed, but that ain't going to happen. So anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. And Brian, I appreciate you helping me do this.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right. We'll talk to you on.
Bye, everybody.